Did you gather all of us just for this?
What would you do if the most powerful people in your city decided that you needed to be destroyed?
O king, these people have abandoned the religion of their fathers. They reject our traditions. Our laws demand their return.
They would take everything from you. Your business, your food, your safety, your family.
We worshiped stones that could not hear us, and this message came to us. It called us to worship only the one God.
And if you were poor or enslaved, they would take your body too. This is not a hypothetical. This actually happened.
And the people it happened to refuse to break. This is that story. For 3 years, the message had been spreading quietly. Small gatherings, private prayers, careful whispers. But silence was never going to be the final answer. The divine command came clearly. Stop hiding. Say it out loud. Bring it into the open. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, moved deliberately. He climbed Mount Safa, one of the highest and most visible points in all of Mecca, and called out to the people below using the traditional Arabian method of summoning a crowd for something urgent. Tribe by tribe, name by name, merchants stopped their transactions. Elders looked up. Travelers paused in the streets. A crowd gathered at the base of the mountain, curious, shielding their eyes from the desert sun. And the Prophet asked them one question. If I told you right now that a large enemy army was hidden just behind this mountain and advancing toward this city, would you trust my word? The crowd exchanged glances. Then the answer came back. Yes, because you have never once lied to us. He nodded. Then hear me now. A severe reckoning is coming. Prepare yourselves. The reaction was immediate. A man named Abu Lahab, one of the Prophet's own uncles, pushed through the crowd shouting with rage. You gathered all of us here for this. What a complete disgrace. He stormed off. And just like that, the comfortable silence was finished forever. Now here is something that most people miss. The fury that followed from Mecca's powerful families was not simply about religious disagreement. It was about money. It was about power. It was about the survival of an entire system. Think carefully about what this message was actually saying to Meccan society. The man you own as a slave stands equal to you before God. The daughter your culture treats as worthless has the right to inherit property. The interest-based lending that generates your wealth is morally forbidden. And those stone idols filling the Kaaba, the ones that bring thousands of pilgrims and their money flooding into your city every single year, they are nothing. They cannot hear, they cannot help. They are rocks. Those idols were not just religious symbols. They were the economic engine of the entire city. Tribes traveled hundreds of miles specifically to worship at them. Markets overflowed. The city got rich. And now a man was publicly telling the whole world that the foundation of that system was built on a lie. You can feel the panic spreading through the Meccan elite. First they tried labels. He is a poet. No, a fortune teller. Actually, he must be under some kind of magical spell. They ran through every available category, trying to find something that would make people stop listening. One of the sharpest minds among the Quraysh, the dominant tribe of Mecca, was a man named Walid ibn Mughira. He sat down and listened to the Quran being recited carefully and attentively. Then he went back to the Quraysh leadership with an honest report. He told them,
What I heard, I cannot call it poetry. I genuinely have no word for what it is.
He could not categorize what he had heard. It did not follow the patterns of Arabic poetry. It was nothing like sorcery. He genuinely had no word for what it was.
That quiet admission frightened the leadership more than any open challenge could have. Because if their most educated man could not dismiss it, how were ordinary people going to resist it? So they abandoned words and turned to something far more brutal. The persecution arrived like a storm, and it broke hardest over the people with no protection, no powerful family name, no tribal shield, no one who would demand justice on their behalf. A family, a husband named Yasir, his wife Sumaya, their son Ammar. They were considered outsiders in Mecca's rigid tribal structure. They had accepted Islam, and they had no one standing behind them. The torturers dragged them out into the open desert under the full crushing heat of the Arabian sun. Sumaya was an elderly woman. She was tortured repeatedly in an attempt to force her to deny what she believed. She refused every single time. And Abu Jahl, one of the most powerful and most ruthless of the Meccan leaders, drove a spear through her personally. She became the first person in history to die for this faith. Let that land for a moment. The first martyr of Islam was not a warrior on a battlefield, not a young man with a sword. She was an old woman with nothing but her belief, killed in the sand by a powerful man who could not stand that she refused to give it up. Then they came for Bilo, an African slave with no legal rights, no family to defend him, nothing. The routine was calculated. They waited for the peak heat of the day. They pressed him flat against the burning desert ground. They placed a massive boulder across his chest, making every breath a fight for survival. Then the demand came. Just say the names of the idols. 2 words. That is all. And this ends right now. 1 word came back. Over and over, through cracked lips and a crushing weight and burning heat. Ahad. One. There is only one God, and I will not deny it.
Not for air, not for war, not to make the pain stop. He would not trade that word for anything. Then Hubbab, they did not use rocks, they used fire.
They held him directly against burning coals until his back was destroyed beyond recovery. Years later, companions who saw the scarring said his skin had the texture and color of charcoal. And he remained in the faith. And then Musa bin Umair, whose story cuts differently because of everything he chose to lose. He was not a poor man with nothing at stake. He was among the most admired young men in all of Mecca. Wealthy family, fine imported clothing, social status that others spent entire lifetimes chasing. When he accepted Islam, his family's response was merciless. They imprisoned him in his own home, cut off his money completely, refused him food. The young man, who once walked through Mecca dressed in luxury, was eventually seen wearing clothes held together by patches and thread. He never once considered going back. And the Prophet himself, he had something the others lacked: the tribal protection of his uncle Abu Talib. Killing him directly would trigger a blood feud that even his worst enemies wanted to avoid. So they found other methods instead. While he was bowing in prayer, his forehead to the ground in complete focus and submission, they dumped the filthy stomach contents of a slaughtered animal directly across his back. He completed his prayer. They stood in Mecca's public spaces calling him names, mocking him, working every single day to erode his dignity and exhaust his spirit. Real people were dying. Real people were being permanently damaged. The Prophet looked at his community and made a decision. Not everyone needed to stay and absorb this. He told them about a land across the sea, modern-day Ethiopia, a kingdom ruled by a Christian king known as Najashi, meaning simply the king. The Prophet described him as a man of genuine justice who did not allow innocent people to be wronged under his authority. Go there. Live. Breathe. The first group slipped out of Mecca quietly at night, small numbers, moving carefully toward the coast. When the Quraysh discovered what was happening, they acted fast. They sent 2 of their sharpest negotiators to the court of Najashi, loaded with gifts and a polished argument.
Great King Najashi, we implore you to consider our polished argument supported by these gifts of gold and fine Meccan leather.
Our laws demand their return. Please send them back to us. Najashi accepted the gifts. Then he did something neither side expected. He called both parties into his royal court, sat down, and said, "Both of you speak. I will hear everything before I decide anything." A man named Jafar ibn Abi Talib stood before the king representing the Muslims. He spoke from lived experience. He described Arabian society before Islam.
O king, we were a people living in ignorance. We buried our daughters alive. We worshipped stones that could not hear us, and this message came to us. It called us to worship only the one God, to speak truth, to protect the weak. And for this, they want to destroy us.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Then he recited verses from the Quran, the story of Maryam, the mother of Jesus, and the miraculous birth of Jesus himself as described in the Revelation. Najashi sat in silence as the words filled his court. Then tears came to his eyes. He said, "The difference between my belief about Jesus and what this book describes is no wider than this." And he held up a small stick from the floor between his fingers. He turned to the Quraysh delegation.
Take your gifts home. These people are not going anywhere.
It was the first political victory of the early Muslim community. A small persecuted group had found formal protection on foreign soil. Small, but real. And it proved something important. This message could reach hearts far beyond the borders of Mecca. But back in Mecca, the pressure was climbing rather than falling. The Quraysh leadership sat together for a serious conversation. Mockery had not stopped the message. Torture had not stopped it. They had even approached the Prophet directly with personal offers. Wealth, leadership, power, anything he wanted, if he would just stop.
We offer partnership. Join us and share in the power of Quraysh.
His answer had become famous throughout Arabia. "Place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left. I will still not abandon this." That answer frightened them, because it meant there was nothing they could offer him. He was not doing this for anything they could give or take away. So they made the decision to go beyond individual punishment. They would target the entire community at once. A formal written agreement was drawn up. Every major family of the Quraysh signed it. The terms were complete and total. No buying from or selling to the Muslims or the clan of Banu Hashim. No business transactions. No marriages. No social contact of any form. No greetings. No cooperation. Nothing. This document was written on parchment, formally sealed, and hung publicly on the wall of the Kaaba, the most sacred and visible location in all of Mecca, so that every person passing through the city would see it and understand this was permanent and enforced. The Muslims and their supporters from the clan of Banu Hashim were driven into a narrow mountain valley on the outskirts of Mecca, called Shib Abi Talib, and the gates were closed behind them. What came next lasted 3 years. 3 years of children looking at their parents with hollow eyes asking for food, and the parents having nothing. 3 years of adults boiling strips of dried leather, not food, just to have something warm in their stomach. 3 years of stripping leaves from whatever trees grew in the valley and chewing them to survive. On rare nights, someone from inside Mecca with enough courage would smuggle food past the blockade under the cover of darkness. These moments were small. The Prophet and the believers continued to pray, continued to hold each other together, refused to break. But the relief lasted almost no time, because within weeks, 2 losses arrived that broke something inside the Prophet's life that could not be repaired. Khadija died, his wife of 25 years. The first person on earth to hear what had happened on the night the revelation began. She had funded the early community from her own wealth. She had been his emotional foundation through years of relentless pressure. And now she was gone. Then Abu Talib died. And with his death, the tribal protection keeping the Prophet physically alive in Mecca was removed entirely. Without a clan guardian standing publicly behind him, the Prophet could now be attacked or killed without any legal obligation for revenge under the tribal laws of Arabia. He was, in the most dangerous and practical sense, unprotected. That period entered history with a name, the Year of Sorrow. It earned that name completely. With every door inside Mecca closing, the Prophet made a decision. He would look outward. He traveled alone with one companion to the city of Taif, 60 miles away, the second most powerful city in the region. He met with the 3 brothers who led the city. He explained everything honestly and completely. Their response was not simply no. They laughed at him, questioned his sanity. And when the meetings ended, they did not ask him to leave quietly. They organized something instead. They pointed the city's troublemakers and young men directly at him. Drive him out. Rocks came raining down as the Prophet moved through the streets of Taif. Not small pebbles. Real stones thrown with the purpose of serious harm. The crowd followed him through the city and beyond the city gates, continuing until he had left their territory. By the time he stopped, his feet and lower legs were so badly wounded that his sandals had bonded to his skin with dried blood. He found a garden outside the city, sat down beneath a grapevine, and by every external measurement, he was completely finished. No city behind him, no protection ahead. The worst physical violence of his life, the worst year of personal loss of his life. Then the angel Jibril appeared, and with him was the angel specifically responsible for the mountains. The offer was direct. Say the word. We bring the two mountains surrounding this city together right now. Taif ends in minutes. The prophet said no, because among the children being born in Taif right now, among the generations that will come from this city, there may be people who will one day recognize the truth and stand before God alone. That possibility is worth more than anything destroying this city could give me. Mercy for people who had just chased him out with stones until his feet bled.
A Christian slave named Adas, working in a garden along the route, came out and offered him a cluster of grapes. The prophet said Bismillah in the name of God before eating.
Bismillah? Where are you from?
Adas stopped, stared, and that phrase was not something people used in the region of Taif.
Bismillah? No one in this land says that word. Where?
A prophet asked where he was from. Adas answered, Nineveh.
The city of Yunus ibn Matta, the prophet known in the Bible as Jonah, a righteous man. My brother.
From Yunus? You know Yunus ibn Matta?
Adas had never met anyone outside his own tradition who knew anything about Yunus. He knelt down in front of this exhausted, bleeding man sitting under a grapevine at the edge of a city that had just rejected him. And he believed. One person, a slave with no status, no influence, no power whatsoever, heard a few words and recognized what was inside them. Getting back into Mecca required one final step. Without tribal protection, the social laws of Mecca meant the prophet could be attacked the moment he entered the city. He had to formally approach a man named Matam ibn Adi, a senior Meccan figure who had not accepted Islam, and request that Matam publicly declare himself the prophet's protector, giving him legal permission to enter his own hometown safely. Matam agreed, made it official, sent his son's arm to the Kaaba to announce it publicly.
O people of Quraysh, hear me! From this moment, Muhammad is under the protection of Mut'im ibn Adi. Let no man lay a hand on him, or he shall answer to the sons of Adi.
And the prophet walked into Mecca as the protected guest of a man who did not share his faith. And he was entering his own city only because someone else allowed it. By every human measure, by every way we judge whether something is succeeding or failing, this looked like the end of the story. But here is what history knows that the eye cannot see in any given moment. The darkest point of this journey was not the ending, it was the doorway. Because right after this, right after the lowest, most human, most broken point in the entire mission, something was about to happen that no human being had ever experienced before, and no human being has experienced since. A single night, beginning in the city of Mecca, ending somewhere beyond the boundary of the known universe. A journey through the heavens, a conversation with God Himself, and a gift that would be carried back down to earth for every believer who would ever live after that night. The night of Al-Qadisiyyah wal Miraj was coming, and every wound, every loss, every rejection, every year of hunger in that valley, every stone thrown in Taif, all of it was the preparation for a moment that would change what humanity understood about its connection to the divine. That story is next. And I promise you, you have never heard it told like this before.